This man went to shocking extremes, crossing every boundary imaginable to commit an act of pure violence. The brutality of what he did still leaves people speechless. At first, no one had any idea where Trisha was. She hadn't called, no one had seen her, and every trace of her daily life suddenly went silent. Her phone stopped ringing. Her bank cards and accounts showed no activity. Nothing. On April 27, 2016, Trisha Todd failed to do something she never missed. She didn't pick up her young daughter, Faith, from the babysitter. She also didn't show up to work that day. That was when the calls began. Friends, co-workers, and family started reaching out, asking the same question: where's Trisha? One of those calls eventually reached her parents. Instantly, worry set in. They didn't make excuses. They didn't tell themselves she'd probably show up later. Instead, they went straight to her home to check for themselves. What they found made things even more unsettling. Trisha wasn't there. Her car was missing. Inside the house, the lights were on. Groceries were left unpacked, sitting exactly where she had placed them. It looked as if she had just stepped out for a moment, but she hadn't returned. But the most alarming detail, the one that made their stomachs drop, was that she had never picked up Faith. Trisha would never leave her daughter behind. And then, as her family looked around in panic, they spotted something across the street. It was her car. They hadn't noticed it before because that wasn't where Trisha ever parked. Suddenly, everything felt wrong. They knew this wasn't just a case of her stepping out. Something terrible had happened. The police were called, and almost immediately, theories started circling. Had she run away? Was she just out briefly and about to come back? But investigators quickly realized the car itself would be their first real clue. When they opened it, the discovery erased any thought that Trisha had left on her own. Her purse was inside. Her keys were still in the ignition. No woman planning to disappear would abandon both. CCTV footage helped piece together her final movements. Cameras showed Trisha driving to a grocery store, buying the same items that were later found in her kitchen, and then returning home. That was the last time she was seen alive. Then came another mystery. On April 26th, the day before she vanished, Trisha and her daughter were supposed to spend the evening with someone. That meant Faith hadn't gone to the babysitter as usual. If Trisha had been the one to drop her off, then the babysitter would have been the last person to see her before she disappeared. Police immediately went to question the babysitter. But the truth was far different. It wasn't Trisha who dropped off Faith. It was Stephen Williams, her ex-husband. Before police confronted Stephen, they wanted to know more about Trisha herself. Patricia Gale Todd, known to everyone as Trisha, was born on February 19, 1986, in Stewart, Martin County, Florida. She was the daughter of David Joseph Todd and Rebecca Jane Todd. Growing up, Trisha was surrounded by family and friends. In 2004, she graduated from South Fork High School, then made a bold decision. She joined the U.S. Air Force. Deployed to Kuwait and Iraq, Trisha served her country with honor. Through it all, one constant remained: her childhood friend, Stephen Williams. Even during her military service, the two stayed in touch. Over time, friendship turned into romance. They began dating, then married. It seemed like a perfect love story, made even sweeter when Trisha became pregnant. The couple welcomed a daughter, Faith. For a while, it felt like everything had fallen into place. But life doesn't always follow the fairy tale script. After more than a decade together, cracks began to show in their marriage. Arguments escalated, problems deepened, and eventually, after 11 years, they separated. Despite the split, they tried to keep things civil. Trisha left law enforcement behind and settled in Hobe Sound, Florida, raising Faith while pursuing a new dream: to become a nurse. Her kindness and strong faith in God made her naturally suited for it. She earned her degree from Central Carolina Technical College and found work as a hospice nurse at Treasure Coast Hospice. She wanted to help others, but her own story was about to take a devastating turn. In the last week of April 2016, Stephen traveled down from his base in North Carolina to see Faith. He booked an Airbnb in town. That night, investigators would later learn, Trisha had driven off in her car. Phone records placed her near Stephen's Airbnb. When police questioned him, Stephen admitted that Trisha had been with him and their daughter that evening. He said she left, promising to pick Faith up the next morning. But she never returned. Stephen told police that because he had to leave for work, He dropped Faith at a babysitter's house. As for Trisha, he couldn't explain where she went. Stephen suggested that maybe she'd gone for one of her late-night walks on the beach, something she often did for peace of mind. Friends confirmed this habit. That gave investigators their first lead. Surveillance cameras even caught Trisha speaking briefly to a man on the beach, a stranger watching sea turtles nest. But the man had no connection to her disappearance, and police cleared him immediately. Days turned into weeks, but answers never came. The only person who truly knew what had happened was Trisha herself. And chillingly, her own words provided the truth. In her private journal, she had documented her pain, her fears, and her dark reality. Stephen Williams wasn't the man people thought he was. The journal revealed disturbing details. He had been violent, even kicking her in the stomach while she was pregnant. Friends who once thought of them as the perfect couple were horrified to learn what Trisha had endured behind closed doors. Even Stephen's own mother gave a statement, revealing how troubled her son had become. He once told her he wished he could simply disappear. When confronted, Stephen denied any involvement in Trisha's disappearance. But his lies began to unravel. His hatred ran so deep that he even strangled and killed 2 of Trisha's dogs, just to destroy what she loved most. Now, with Trisha missing, investigators couldn't ignore the obvious. Stephen was at the center of this. CCTV footage became critical once again. Despite his denials, Stephen was caught on camera driving both his own car and Trisha's the night she vanished. He told police he had only borrowed her car for gas, but when investigators checked, her tank was nearly empty. Another lie. He had also been spotted near her house that night. Piece by piece, the evidence cornered him. On May 24, 2016, Stephen Williams was arrested. But even in custody, his story kept shifting. First, he claimed ignorance. Then, when pressed, he painted an unbelievable picture, that he had gone to Trisha's house to pick up her laptop at her request. He said when he returned to the Airbnb, he found her already lying on the floor, barely alive. He insisted she was trying to set him up. Instead of calling for help, he admitted to moving her body. He said he laid her down somewhere quiet, even crossing her arms and placing her phone beside her, as if she might call for help. It was a story that defied reason, a story that raised far more questions than answers. And with every interrogation, the lies only grew. Getting the truth out of him took time, a long, slow unspooling of half-answers and denial. If his version of events were true, one detective argued, then there was no reason he couldn't lead them to her. Bring us to her, the detective said. Let us see. Prove it. If there were no other injuries, if everything matched his story, then fine. Maybe it was a terrible mistake, a panic, a bad decision to move her instead of calling 911. That still might be a misdemeanor compared to a murder charge. So if the story is real, why not show us where she is? Why not take us to her? Stephen insisted he didn't remember where he'd left Trisha. He said he'd been driving so fast and was so scared that he couldn't recall the place where he stopped. I don't have a clue where that is, he told them. I don't have any recollection of where that place is located. But the detectives pushed back hard. You made it there, they said. You made it back. You thought straight enough to change your clothes. You thought straight enough to get rid of clothes. You thought straight enough to clean up. You thought straight enough to send that text the next morning to cover your tracks. Those weren't the actions of someone who'd been totally lost or incapable of remembering. His answers didn't convince. He said again and again that he couldn't remember. He insisted she had died the way he described, and that was why he panicked. She did, he said. She did. And I can't tell you where that is. He insisted he'd freaked out because he didn't understand how it happened. He claimed to have been good to her, to have given her space, and to have thought maybe it was some setup because, he said, she set me up before in the past. Still, he maintained he had no memory of the location. No matter how directly Detective Card called out the contradictions, Stephen didn't change his story. That's when Detective Michael Oliver took over and stepped in to run the interview. Detective Oliver opened with a calm, controlled line. We have a man. What's your name? Stephen Williams answered. Stephen, with a P or a V, he mumbled. Oliver explained he'd listened to previous statements and wanted to clear up a few things. He asked an open, simple question that allowed Stephen to expand. What did he mean earlier when he referred to Trisha as dramatic or that she liked drama? Stephen talked about tone and habit. She liked to embellish, he said. Everything was bigger in her storytelling. She's always overly dramatic in her storytelling, he said. Everything is bigger than what it really was. That's just how she is. He shrugged and said it didn't matter to him. They were divorced now. They had their own lives. Detective Oliver stayed patient. He steered the conversation toward the engine of so many broken marriages: money and custody. Did most fights come down to money? Stephen admitted money had been a recurring flashpoint. He described a smaller, persistent grievance. He wanted a little consistency, 10 to 15 minutes of time, Monday through Friday. He said he didn't ask for much. If you know you're not going to be there at 5, don't wait till 5:50 to tell me you're not coming online. Tell me at 3. He replayed how Trisha would string him along. I'll be 5 minutes, then 30 minutes, then another 20, and how that made him feel ignored and frustrated. Oliver's technique worked. By asking open questions and letting Stephen talk, the detective coaxed more than facts. He drew out emotional detail that hinted at motive and resentment. Money, time with their child, and the erosion of a relationship after separation. These were the fractures that set the backdrop for everything that followed. Then the interview got surgical. Detective Oliver reminded him of the timeline. When he left the bed and breakfast in Trisha's car, there was a window of roughly 2 hours until the vehicle was returned. We know it's 2 hours, right? Do you agree that if we know when her car, leaves the bed and breakfast, and we know when the car ends up back in front of the house, that's 2-something hours? For 2 hours and something, you are in her car, correct? Stephen's tone shifted between evasive and vague. No, I have her car. Yeah, but I don't know where I am. I'm not driving for 2 hours. The detective pressed. Were you stopped for an hour? 45 minutes? I don't know how long, Stephen answered. I don't care what we know. What I'm saying to you is I'm not asking for you to give me times. I'm asking for you to tell me what you were doing. We know the time. The time is set in stone. It's 2 hours and something. Cornered by the facts, Stephen admitted the unavoidable. For that span, he was in or around Trisha's car with her, with an unconscious or lifeless body. Correct, he said. Yes. The detective pushed. What were you doing for those 2 hours? Stephen stumbled. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do, he said. He offered fragments. The dusty road, pacing up and down, sitting there for hours thinking, what the hell am I going to do? He said he had driven around, parked on a dirt road, walked back and forth, unsure how to act while his fuel was running low. At one point, as the interview turned psychological, the female detective left the room so Detective Oliver could try a different tactic. He launched into an hour-long monologue designed to make Stephen feel safe enough to tell the truth, to lower defenses, to invite confession by showing understanding and control. Detective Oliver commented, and then she off cheating on you. You try to do the right thing with her, she's pushing your buttons up against the wall with this key thing, and she gets you in trouble. Next thing I know, she's talking to your commanding officer's wife about you being with this girlfriend. I saw all of this. She's always pushing your buttons, always trying to do the right thing, while you're trying to be a good person, and still it's not working. And here she comes again. The voice pressed on. I have a kid. Okay, that is a stressful thing. A child in the middle of the night who wants their mommy and will not take no for an answer. That would push anybody's buttons. That would get anyone on edge. I've been there. My kids scream, I want my mommy, I want my mommy. It doesn't make me angry, but it makes me feel something inside. And I know you think the truth is going to look so much worse, but I can tell you, the truth is never as bad as what people will imagine if you let them create their own story. I hated her? No, I never hated her. So tell me what happened. But Oliver was wrong. The truth was far worse than anyone expected. Finally, Stephen cracked. He confessed that Trisha had started an argument about child support. Voices rose, tempers escalated, and when she blocked his way, he claimed he tried only to move her aside. She slipped. She hit her head. I didn't mean it. That wasn't my fault. I didn't lose my cool. I just moved her away, and she hurt herself. But investigators pressed harder. The story was full of holes. Stephen insisted. I tried to de-escalate. I couldn't leave. She just fell. She wasn't responsive after that. Yet detectives were unconvinced. You do know where she is. The only reason you won't take us to her is if something else happened, and you're not telling me. She will be found. But Stephen deflected. I don't know. It was dark. The road was dusty. Detectives turn the knife. Do you love your daughter? Then show her you did the right thing. Otherwise, she will grow up believing her father left her mother to be eaten by animals. Is that what you want her to remember? Even under this pressure, Stephen remained cold. His hatred toward Tricia was deeper than the interrogation revealed. He agreed to help police only after being offered a deal, second-degree murder with 35 years if he led them to her body. That's how Tricia Todd's remains were discovered in the John C. and Mariana Jones Hungryland Wildlife and Environmental Area, hidden inside a tub. But the plea deal didn't capture the whole story. Later, under continued questioning, Stephen revealed chilling details he had withheld. Tricia had just turned 30 in February 2016. By April, Stephen had decided she would die. The trip to Hobe Sound wasn't about a visit. It was about murder. He waited until she returned to pick up Faith. When she came back, he knocked her unconscious. His plan was to demand her email password, send fake goodbye letters, and erase her life digitally before erasing her physically. But when Tricia woke up, she screamed. Stephen panicked, furious at the risk of exposure. In a burst of rage, he struck her with lethal force, while their 2-year-old daughter slept in the next room. What followed was methodical. He stuffed Tricia's body into a trash bag, retrieved fuel, and drove her car, a mistake that put him on CCTV. He had even purchased a chainsaw in North Carolina, intending to strip her body of teeth and fingerprints. In the end, he cut her apart, attempting to dissolve the remains in acid. But no amount of planning could conceal the brutality of his crime. For Tricia's family, the nightmare was unbearable. Her father spoke through grief, remembering his daughter's vibrant love, her faith, her smile. He even wished Stephen a chance at redemption, hoping prison might force him to change. Stephen was sentenced to 35 years for second-degree murder and child neglect, a plea that spared him from life, but gave Faith a future without either parent. Tricia Todd was laid to rest at the South Florida National Cemetery. Her family clung to faith and memory, raising little Faith with love, trying to turn tragedy into strength. Stephen's shifting stories and hollow justifications showed a man determined to rewrite history to protect himself, not his daughter. So we are left with difficult questions. What choices could Stephen have made instead of taking a life? And how should the justice system strike a balance between accountability and rehabilitation in cases like this? Thanks for joining me in exploring this chilling true crime story. If you found it as compelling as I did, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into real mysteries. Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. I always love hearing them. And remember, stay curious, stay safe, and keep questioning the world around you.